Okay. Well, Joanne, by the way of introductions, I contacted you because of Martha Brown,
Right.
who is an RJ trainer. Her name was on the Living Justice Press website. You familiar with that organization? Yep. And so she suggested I contact you because you folks have done a lot of RJ training and implementation in your district, and she thought you might be interested in the little gig that we have going.
Yeah, I'm very interested. So I met Martha. So we did some initial training with some guys out of Skidmore. So Duke Fisher and Kevin Johnson. I don't know if you're aware of them, but really very constructivist kind of training where we spent the whole time in circles and very little philosophical basis, but
Yep.
it was just like, okay, this is what I've been waiting my whole life for kind of thing for me. And actually we have about 110 teachers, and 40 of them ended up going through this training with the guys from Skidmore. So just a real groundswell of interest. But we wanted to move slow to do it right. So this current school year was kind of about awareness, capacity building, and building community. So we're not really getting too much into, you know, tier 2 or tier 3 circles at all, but really just trying to build that, really do some healing among the staff, build some sense of community, teach everybody the protocols and all of that. And in the context of that, I ended up hearing about Martha through a podcast, and then just went and researched her, heard she did this course. So I took a course with her through Simon Fraser University. So full-blown grad class, which I haven't done in a long time, with just incredibly intense. Like I'd forgotten what it was like to take a grad class and just have 100 pages of reading a week and all these papers and all of that. But, you know, and I don't want to talk too much. I want to turn it over to you guys. But so we haven't really done a full-blown training with our staff yet. And honestly, I haven't found what I'm looking for in terms of that piece. So I went to, I don't know, a 3-day IIRP, and honestly, it's not the depth that I was looking for. So anyway, so we've got about a third of the staff who's been pretty intensely trained, but we haven't done a full-blown a formal introduction with the whole staff yet. And I just haven't found and I was talking to Martha about her possibly doing that. That's not really her shtick either. She's much more into the readiness and evaluation piece. I've talked to Joe Brummer. I don't know if you know him. He's kind of comes at it from a trauma-informed lens. So I'm just shopping, really, trying to find, because I don't think, I feel like I'm getting a pretty good knowledge base, but I don't think I can do the training with my own staff. I really need somebody else. But at the same time, I've got this cohort of people that have really, they're reading books together, they're studying together, they're meeting monthly. So I almost have like 2 tiers of things going on. And so I'm interested in what you guys are doing, because maybe that leadership group may benefit from what you guys are working on. But I still haven't really found what I want for the whole staff.
Okay. Well, I don't know if we're going to be the answer.
Yeah, I don't know either,
for your whole staff, but I'll tell you a little bit about my background, and I'll let Melora and Susan tell you about their backgrounds. And then Melora is going to demonstrate the platform on which these micro-credentials are loaded onto. Okay. So you're familiar with micro-credentialing and the concept?
A little bit. We haven't really done much of that here, but I'm aware of the concept.
Okay, so about 3 years ago, I had been retired from Randolph Academy, which is a special ag school district. And myself and another colleague did a couple micro-credentials for Lori DiCarlo, who's a superintendent. Yep. And then as a follow-up to that, she had led that district into restorative practices. Yep. And trained her staff and did all this stuff. So that we then developed a stack of micro-credentials for her related to restorative justice. Now, these are not designed to teach your staff the concepts of restorative justice.
Right.
They're designed to be used after folks have been trained, after they've been practicing their craft, to demonstrate that they actually know what they're doing. And when Melora gets to her piece, she'll show you how they're divided into a course and then 3 challenges that people need to complete. So and in terms of the professional development, I don't know what Potsdam does in terms of how you award professional development hours, if you attach money to it, whatever you do. With this concept, my recommendation is that the individual be awarded 1 day's worth of professional development. So if that's 6.5, 8 hours, that's what they would get at the end of if they complete all 5, which they must do sequentially, they just can't jump around. And that's my decision to have it that way because I'm a concrete sequential person. And my wife is abstract. She drives me nuts when she'll do the 5th one first and then go back to the first one. And I just can't deal with that. So with that being said, Laura, why don't you jump to the platform and show Joanne how these things are organized and how they get completed. And Laura, before you start, may I make one comment on this page?
Yes.
Joanne, at the top of the line, you'll see the 1, 2, 3, 4 over are starts the different micro credentials, the diamond, the overview, community circles, restorative conversations, restorative conference. The diamond is not something that you would find in restorative justice training. That was a tool that we used at Randolph Academy on a daily basis to determine the social role that kids play within their peer group. And I think it's important when you're doing circles and working with groups of kids that you know who the leader is, who their lieutenants are, who the scapegoat is, so that then you can understand why they do what they do, and then exert a little peer pressure on folks to get them to do what you want them to do. So that's why that was included. So Laura, have at it.
Okay. So I'll just tell you why I'm here also. OYO Class is my company. Our main organization was founded in 2001, and we've had a mission to bring peer-to-peer digital learning into play for a long period of time. Originally, when we began, we were teaching young people how to code and then training teachers. Our platform got adopted by actually New York's Superintendent of the Year this year, Dr. Nagler, and he uses our platform extensively for all of his distance learning. So both our platform and John's implementation of the platform are aidable through BOCES. We're on the COSER 444 for distance learning. So what's been interesting for us is John came to me through another partner of ours, Randy Squires, Superintendent of Coxsackie-Athens District in New York, and he's been using the micro-credential and digital badging platform extensively for professional development across his district, and has had a really strong success. So he goes around and talks about it, and I believe that's where John came across our platform to begin with. The beauty of our platform is that it really was built to handle delivering instruction with actionable feedback that can be reviewed by the district, and each district putting it into play has the opportunity to create as well as utilize the content within the platform. So it's a very robust tool, and John saw a way in which he could apply his learning to the same platform, and we've worked together to build this. So I really don't have any background in restorative justice. All of my background is in coding and product development and software development. Okay, so just so if I stumble over things, I thought I'd kind of give that ahead of time. I've learned a lot about restorative justice practices, and certainly have heard a lot about it with the school district partners we have, but really John is the expert in this conversation.
Oh, I'm not the expert, Susan is.
Okay, Susan is the expert in this conversation, but it is certainly not me. Okay, so John, if you would like me to present this in any other order, please let me know.
Oh,
I have placed the web link for this into the chat for the group to see, because John has made a lot of this publicly viewable so that you can come in and see what the content is. You just can't really engage the content until you have a license within the platform. So the link that I provided will allow you to see all of this. So would you like me to start with the pathways themselves, John?
sure.
Okay, so here what he has done is put together some general information that really goes through the core of each part of the restorative justice approach to training. So on this page, and you can kind of review this at your own pace, this information is all available. I don't know, do you want to explain what they're looking at the moment, John?
If you scroll back up to the diamond, Joanne, those are the 8 social roles that kids play within a peer group. And before we got involved with restorative justice, we had a peer behavior management program. We called it normative culture. And daily because behavior was the biggest issue with our student population, that we used the diamond in a circle. We call it group guided interaction, GGI. I don't know if you're familiar with that term. And every day there would be somebody that facilitated the circle and an observer who would watch the students and then label them into one of these social groups. And then outside of this, we would pressure the leader to be a positive leader if they were negative, and to make it a safe environment so the scapegoat or the kid who would get bullied within the circle could tell the leader, I don't like it when, and explain to them what's going on, similar to restorative justice, and expect to feel safe and secure in that environment and not be retaliated against outside of the circle. And we found it worked pretty well. So when they moved into restorative justice, it was a natural, easy move for the school and the staff. So that's kind of what that's all about. If you scroll down, Malar, when you get to the activities at the bottom, part 1, which is an overview, you have to tell us how you'd use the tool, and all of these are similar. Keep scrolling down, and right here in part 2, there's a video that you would have to use, and at some point you can watch that video. It's staff at the academy role-playing kids, and when you're finished, you have to label who is in what role. And unless you really study it, it sounds easy, but it's very subtle in the way that these folks presented it. So, and then the third thing is to reflect on what you have learned and how you're going to apply it to your classroom. So instead of having a sit and get professional development model, this is you have to participate and demonstrate. Big difference.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, Malar, go ahead.
Did someone have a question? No? Okay. So each one of these sections are publicly viewable, meaning that you don't need to log in yet to see them. Inside the platform, once I click inside the platform itself, now we are seeing the actual interactive learning paths is what they're called. And a learning path consists of information delivered in the form of a course, which John has here. So this walks through similar to what you saw on the web link where it's giving some of the information. And then the teacher who's going through this and training, after they've completed the course or, kind of taken in all of the information, they are required then to have an action-based response. And so John lays out what the actual challenge is, what is it that you're supposed to apply, and leaves information. Oh, I did this one somehow. Hold on. I'm sorry. Let me go back because I didn't even realize I've done any. Let's check this one. you can see, I should have seen this, is I passed. So as the learner is going through, they're taking each one of these challenges, putting them into play. It is reviewed by John, if I'm correct, by John or his partner. And then that, if the teacher has done this successfully, they would be issued a badge, and you can track the analytics to see who has done what part of their training. So in here you can see the video that he's put forward, the criteria for pass, almost, or not yet. He gives a chart that they need to copy to use to complete, and they're given a solution field here. So the solutions can be delivered back in any way. In this case, John has put together a chart requesting that the feedback is given in this way. In some cases, it might be a video-based response, a photo response, a worksheet, or simply uploading, writing some text about the experience, which would be responding. Once they type this in, sorry, go ahead.
Yep, just a comment. On some of these, there's the initial requirement for the teacher to do a videotape of a community circle and submit it so you know that they're going through the steps and they're doing the right things. Some districts, and I don't know if yours might be one, object to videotaping students and putting their faces on, put them any place out on the internet. So what we would accept in lieu of a video is just a good quality audio recording of the circle, because if we can hear it, we can know whether it's being done properly. So a district really has a choice of how they want to submit that
Okay.
portion of it. So
And maybe you said this already, but who's evaluating what's getting submitted?
the evaluators, I'm not a certified trainer for RJ. I've done a lot of the work. I just don't want to be certified because I'm not a good trainer. I realize that's not a calling I have. People like Susan, who she can tell you your background in a minute. People like Susan who are trained in RJ, certified by IIRP, or in the case of my colleague, Dr. Tom Cavanaugh, who is a gentleman who has done a lot of training in New York State the past 3 or 4 summers. So the folks who would evaluate know what they're doing because they've been involved in this for a number of years. So I have confidence in their ability to evaluate the work properly. And then I just check, I'm just the gatekeeper at the end, Melora, to make sure all of the pieces are put together and done properly. And then at the end say, okay, you get the badge.
Okay. And I will just say, in terms of, just to add on a little bit of the video, since we do work extensively with kids in pre-K through 12 space, this platform allows you to create a local video, and without outputting it to Vimeo or YouTube or some publicly explorable place, it can be just directly uploaded into the platform. And once it is, in this case, the video would then be housed in Restorative Justice, in John's organization. In the case, if a school district was implementing their own version of OYO class for PD or for student learning, the district has sole ownership over the video. And an individual student can always request to take their work down, and in many cases, take their work down themselves for private view. It doesn't take it out of an analytics view. So like John would continually be able to verify that it was there and the work had been done, but you do have the ability to remove any private or sensitive information. Okay, so let me come back up. I want to show you what it looks like when the teachers are satisfying. In this case, they have, in restorative justice, have been in kind of going through, and they have, I guess, a guinea pig in here doing some of the training, for lack of a better term. As the training is completed, the challenge work is posting to the wall that this individual solved the challenge, and they earn this micro-credential. If I click on this person here in the platform, I can see that they have a portfolio building. The portfolios are technically, they're owned by the individual who's taking it. So if you have a teacher in your district, they now have an OYO class portfolio. Any other badging programs that they take part in, whether it be through OYO class or some other open badge standard framework, which is the national standard for badging, are interchangeable. So when you open up a badge, in this case, this is what the teacher would now have. This is the mastery badge, which represents the completion of the full learning path rather than each individual challenge within it. However, it would give you some information from which learning community that badge was issued, who it was earned by, the time and date stamp. And then here you have a description of what it took to receive that badge and individual links to each of the smaller badges that make that up. So I'll click on one of those just so you can see. This just pops up the individual. The importance of badges are a number of things. One is badges are often used for just your own modern resume, for lack of a better term. A badge can be shared via a web URL or a website address. Once it's created, it has its own identity on the internet, for lack of a better term. Many organizations, large tech companies, small companies, are using these as evidence of work, because a badge represents an evidence of work rather than necessarily just watching a video with no feedback or anything along those lines. Let me come back here. And I should say that that's a free part of OYO class, that all users have this portfolio, whether you're paying for an enhanced license or specific training in a group or not. Okay, so here we are back at the learning path. So you can see when the learner is complete, they can request to get this badge, and that badge would then post to their portfolio. On the wall, the user has the ability, if a teacher earns the badge and just doesn't want to be on this wall of other teachers earning the badge, they have the ability, as you can see I'm toggling over, they can delete the activity. It's always at the choice of the user of the platform. Okay, I think I will turn it back over to you, John, or Suzanne,
Okay.
someone for questions.
Melora, can you unmute Susan?
Susan can unmute herself, I believe.
Okay.
There, yep,
Susan.
I unmuted
All right.
myself.
Would you tell Joanne and Melora, because this is the first time they've met you, where your background is in restorative practices, restorative justice, and what you've been doing?
Sure, I'd be happy to. Well, first I apologize if it's too loud. I'm sitting on my porch because it's a beautiful day. So you may hear a few birds chirping, but I couldn't resist the temptation to be somewhat outside. So I implemented restorative practices starting about 8 years ago for a large school district in Northern Virginia. My training initiated through a mediation that was using restorative justice primarily for out of the juvenile justice system. I then became fully licensed by IIRP and fully implemented. So we had 90 schools, 10,000 employees. Joanne, I completely understand some of the concerns with the IIRP training. I think it wasn't originated really for a school district. So I think they've developed expertise over time, but I find the depth of that is sort of lagging behind a lot of the work that's going on in school districts around social emotional learning. What I did within my school district was continue to develop like advanced circle training, advanced conference training. So taking the basics of what IIRP had and then enhancing that, because after the training, I found there were so many questions once you begin to implement circles, whether it's actually just the basics of moving in and out of circles that teachers have within their classroom. If it questions like, what do I do if I have a selective mute student, bilingual? So we were able to develop sort of an additional sophisticated training once our staff receive some of the basic training. I've done a lot of coaching, a lot of mentoring. My expertise really is in the content and in the training. I've trained around the country in restorative practices. So I think there we are. We're obviously, I would say, so John and I met because I actually trained his son, or your son was at a training hub in Northern
He wasn't
Virginia.
at the training. He's a teacher at the school, the Garfield High School in Virginia, Prince William County, where you did a
Yes.
training. And he called me up and said, "Dad, you won't believe what's going on today." So it was an interesting introduction.
It was. So I've been helping John work with some of the content, I would say. Would you say that's accurate, John?
Yes, yes.
Updating the content area. I think, we're in a whole new phase now with a lot of the face-to-face training. Certainly the initial training being somewhat limited, and moving to how do you take this as you, just hearing you talk, Joanne, the power of sitting in a circle and learning the content in that way. It's really hard to replace that. So looking at creative ways, hopefully over time we'll be back to more of that kind of training. But in the meantime, what we can provide, I think John has a great tool here in that sort of that ongoing training model that allows, once you've been had that basic circle training that allows you to have that piece. I think in our field, that mentoring and the coaching piece has been slow to come. And I think this can be a good supplement to that.
Okay.
So, Joanne, what questions might you have for any of us?
I guess, we haven't done anything like this. We've tried a couple different times over the years to, have some online learning platforms available, and honestly, it never took off. This period may change everything because, that's what teachers have right now. And so that would be my only, what kind of, maybe this is more from Melora, districts who have bought in, what kind of I'm just at, this is rigorous, what I'm looking at versus watching a webinar. This is pretty intense. We have no stipends or anything assigned to CTLE credits, there's no financial incentive. So I'm just wondering how many teachers would voluntarily, engage in this kind of learning.
Well, I can tell you, from my perspective, what I've seen is there's always some sort of an incentive offered to get the teachers to begin the training. In some cases, districts have, it's so different for every district. So, I'll just tell you a couple different scenarios. But, one of my district partners, they provide, many of them I guess do, provide ample training opportunities for the teachers to satisfy their CTLE time from the district perspective. But they also realize that it's draining for the teachers to show up live to do that when a lot of this is compliance or renewal of let's do our sexual harassment training and things like that, things that they have to check off the box. But rather than forcing them into a physical space, this allows them to kind of, as they're calling it, pajama PD time. I can't get it out. That was going downhill fast. So in any case, I know, for instance, I mentioned Randy Squire before from Coxsackie. He started with us about 3 years ago, and he said, we have these snow day periods, and normally we require the teachers to come in and continue working at the end of June. I'm going to try this experiment. I'm going to put up some PD. And it was just on using Google Classroom or using some of their Z-Space or whatever technology they had, as well as they did some compliance stuff. And they said, let's just see. So they put it out for all their teachers. And they said, if you do the equivalent of 8 hours of this, we're going to let you not attend this one extra day of school. And if you do 16, you don't have to do that, and so on. So they rated each one of their challenges with a time-based interaction. And they had 2,550 submissions at the end of week 2 of launching it. It was so successful that now his platform for PD looks more robust than most of the PD platforms I've seen that are not school-based. And we're starting to talk about how can he distribute that more to get it out there. A lot of the school districts they have new teachers coming in, and there's things where they want to train them on using the rubric, Danielson rubric, or they might want to train them on, the SAMR model. They provide all of that ahead of time and require those teachers to get that out of the way before they're in school, before they're actually starting, or some over the summer training. So I think it really just kind of depends on what you can replace for them, what you can position as, look, instead of coming in, this is something we all have to do as teachers, but instead of coming to do it here, we're giving you the opportunity to do it at home at your own pace, but there's still no risk to the district that they didn't do it, because it's all about evidence-based work. The feedback is what you're measuring the time on, not the time that the video might have been playing while they were doing laundry and their kid was climbing on them and they were having 2 glasses of wine or whatever it might be. It's the work that they give back, and the fact that the system allows for continual exchange, as Susan was saying. The mentoring part is really important, and our platform really is split up. So there's a student, whether that's a teacher or an actual, child student, and there's a mentor. And if the teacher, let's say they respond, but it's not really quite there, the response, they didn't seem to get it. Like, that's where you have that real moment of intervention and being able to really make a difference, because the mentor can give direct feedback to that person. It doesn't show up in a public space, but they submit their challenge. The mentor reviews it and says, you're close, but I really need you to take another look at this, and they can give more information. They can provide another link and ask for a different bit of feedback to really make sure that the teacher is understanding it, that the training was meaningful, and that they have this mentoring person they can come back and ask questions to. Oftentimes in these live trainings, there it is, the training, you leave, you think you've got it all in your head, you get home and you're like, wait, what was that? And now you don't have that place to keep going back, keep approaching the work, and really just have a place where you can have that mentoring component. So I think that's like, with our school partners, they're leaning more and more towards that digital PD part of it, that they're creating and owning, because everybody's doing something different. Like, you probably don't have the same technology that, let's say, Mineola School District has.
Right.
They're like, through the roof with technology, versus like, I grew up in Tioga County. I know our district doesn't have any of the technology still really rolling out into those schools. So I think it's important that everybody has something that's customizable, and that's really what this offers too. So you can build on this, what these guys are offering, if you wanted to do like your own other PD that you have to do. And you're right, because we have no idea what's coming.
Right.
I've seen teachers who would not even consider using our platform are using it solely for their engagement with PD and their engagement with their classrooms. So we are kind of in this really transitional moment.
Sure.
But in any case, I hope that answered your question.
Yeah.
Please ask for more information if you need.
And Joanne, I'd point you at 3 companies that are heavily into micro-credentials, and I don't know if you're familiar with Bloomboard as a company,
No.
Digital Promise,
No.
and the Center for Teacher Quality. Now, Digital Promise, if you go to their website, they have, 200 or 300 micro-credentials in a variety of areas. And I've chosen to focus on just one area, but if you want to expand your library of choices, Bloomboard is a provider of micro-credentials. Digital Promise is an issuer. And the folks at CTQ, if you want to do a plan and really get into this stuff, they can help you do that.
Okay.
Okay? So I just spent your entire budget this morning.
Yeah, that's my last question, because of course we are in a budget crisis right
Oh,
now.
yeah.
Threats of mid-year cuts next year from the governor. So can someone provide me with what the licensing would be?
For
Laura?
restorative justice?
Well, I guess I don't really know how it works. So you do it by course, you do it by topic. How is the pricing?
Well, so the way that it works with John's organization and mine is a little different because we sell through BOCES and we just have this OYO class license. It doesn't include John's content. John is selling actually his own version of OYO class with all of his custom content and mentoring loaded. So we're kind of like, we're two different things, but I host John on my platform as content. For mine, it depends on what you're using it for, and if you wanted to talk about that, we could do that at a different time. But John, I think what you're looking at for this one is John has some thought through pricing. I believe it doesn't have a lot to do with me.
Okay.
At the end of the day, if you go through Melora's company and generate BOCES aid on the expense, your net cost is going to be, I'm going to say, a little under $400 per teacher, which is around, I don't know, a little between $5 and $10 per professional development hour. You divide it by 30. And if some districts like Randolph Academy, because I work there and I know those folks, they can come to me direct, and I'm going to allow them to do their own evaluations because I know the folks. And so their cost structure is much different.
Right.
I've also thought about whether or not I should lease these to a district if they can demonstrate capacity to evaluate and do it on a consistent professional level. Then I've thought about that. But Joanne, this has only been on the market since January.
Okay.
And so to try and figure, there isn't a lot of history to answer that question. There's a lot of discussion, and how it's going to look a year from now, I don't know.
Okay.
But I think, you know, you have some professional development budget of some type for your district, and it's just, I think, a reallocation of some of the funds to provide staff with something like this. I don't view it as it should be an additional expense because districts can't afford it.
Right.
So
Yeah, we don't have much money. If I'm just trying to do the math, honestly. So you're talking about what, $2,000, $2,500 per teacher? I mean,
no, less than that. I think if you go through BOCES, the cost is going to be about $1,200, but you're probably getting 80% aid on that expenditure.
Yeah, 75.
75 or whatever. So that's the BOCES side, and I got myself in real deep hot water with the district superintendent over BOCES aid because I told them they ought to do away with it entirely because it
Right.
skews the platform.
Yeah.
But that was another day, another time.
If you get a lot of aid though, and you can be on something that's 100% aidable and your aid ratio is high, it really is extremely.
Oh, we couldn't survive without it.
Yeah.
Really. But you know, the downside is you have to spend it 1 year to get it the next. So
That's right.
That's correct.
And this is going to be a year that's going to be really hard to spend.
Yeah.
You know.
Yep. Exactly. And Joanne, just a question. If you go back in the annals of Potsdam Central School, in the 70s, I think you'll find a superintendent by the name of Carlos Gutierrez.
I have seen Mr. Yep. So when we have a retiree, I always go through their personnel file to like tell their story kind of thing. And I've seen Mr. Gutierrez's name on many of those evaluations.
When I was a rookie teacher, he was the superintendent in Friendship, New York.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah. So it was interesting when Potsdam Central School popped up that you're interested. I thought, you'd have liked Carlos. He was a forward thinker, way ahead of his time in terms of being a progressive educator. Guy was a good guy.
It's
enjoyed
funny
working
how
for 'em.
how little of that history exists over time. I mean, I'm sure it'll be different in our lifetime because of technology, but you know, there's not much, there just aren't many artifacts left from somebody
Mhm.
like that. You know, other than
Yep.
personnel files with evaluations, there's no, like, I always wonder what were their goals? What were they working on? You know,
Yep.
but there's not much of that around anymore. So,
Oh, yeah. Carlos was a real dude. The sense of the word, I'll tell you.
well,
Oh.
thanks so much for sharing what you're working on. I'll definitely give it some thought. I'll poke around on your site, Melora, and get a sense for what this course looks like. So I appreciate it.
Okay,
All
great.
right, and Joanne, my website is bestgroup.us,
Okay.
and then the top line is another area you can poke around. You'll see restorative justice micro-credentials, so.
Okay. I will definitely take a look.
Okay, cool.
Okay. Thanks so much, everybody.
Thank
Take care.
you, folks.
care.
Appreciate your time.